morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Wednesday. Welcome to Ask the Theologian. I'm Dr. Randy White, and we take your biblical, theological, and worldview questions. We have a lot of fun as we do so, and I hope you'll put in your question. You can put the word question in if you're happen to watch live and on the chat boxes, or you can go to asktheologian.com where you can submit your question even now or 24 hours, 7 days a week. It'll come to me instantly. And we'll get you started. Tonight, we study the Gospel of Mark. Excuse me, ringing the bell there accidentally. We study the Gospel of Mark tonight. Hey, speaking of Mark, did you see Pastor Mark Bays, put that new video out on small churches? Good stuff there. A little humor, a little fun, and a lot of truth. It's on Worshipify, also on YouTube, Pastor Mark Bays. And appreciate that. He's off with the babies this week, I believe. So no shields and arrows till Friday. But there we go. Let's see. I see a Pastor Timothy question on the Catholic Church. I almost did a short. I might do it yet today on the Catholic Church. So it's probably unrelated to the question, but there we go. Interesting question on how much studying do we have to do to be approved by God? And an anonymous question. Look forward to that. And we've got a question by, by Edith and William. And I did those in backward order. So we are starting with William in Aliso Viejo, California. Good to see you all the time. You know, unrelated, but related to California. What presidents have come from California? You know what? I think this is kind of interesting. California is uber leftist, but I think every California president we have had has been on the conservative side. Obviously, Ronald Reagan, governor of California. We had Richard Nixon, conservative and liberal and moderate were very different in Nixon's day. But nonetheless, certainly not a liberal. He was the senator from California. And Herbert Hoover, you know I'm a Hoover fan. He was born in Iowa, Susan, but orphaned, raised in California, was more of a California guy than anything. He was on the conservative side. You know, again, interestingly, he and Teddy Roosevelt and that era, they would have called themselves progressive. But this is we talked about how words change. Progressive in the, say, from 1900 to probably 1940 had a very different meaning than progressive, say, from 1970 to today. I think it could be said that Herbert Hoover is the one who created the modern right, political right. And yet he would have said, I'm a progressive, I'm a liberal. But liberal meant something completely different. So, that's just came up because we said California. How's that? That's what happens to I don't know if I have ADD, but it's an ADD brain. Just, picks on something and runs with it. Okay, here's the question. Is there a chance that the beast in the book of Revelation is pertaining to AI, artificial intelligence, and that Neuralink kinds of advancement in technology that mixes humanity with machines? My basic answer is going to be no. But I also don't think that where we've come today that you can understand the beast of Revelation, who is the Antichrist. you can't fully understand them without understanding that AI and Neuralinks and getting Neuralink is the company, getting close to artificial intelligence, or transhumanism, I should say. Coming to that point is utterly and drastically going to change the world. I happen to be, you probably know, any of who've listened very long, I'm an early adopter when it comes to technology. Some of it I love, some of it I hate. I don't have an Apple Watch. I tried that. It's a really fancy way to tell me what time it is. I don't need all that. Besides that, I realized that just to look at my watch, I had to put the glasses on and then see what it was trying to tell me. It's trying to tell me 10,000 things, and I had to grab my glasses every time. And I could just get glasses, I suppose, but I don't need to know all that stuff. I got it. It's as close as my pocket. Surely, I mean, it's not that. So, some advancement in technology. I've been a fairly big AI fan. Neuralink. I like the things Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink. I think that Neuralink is going to allow the blind to see, the deaf to hear, the lame to walk. In a completely scientific, non-religious kind of way. It's just electricity. Neurons is basically the copper wires in the body that sends the electrical signals, and sometimes they get broken. Well, we don't have a problem. If we got a short in our electrical system in the house, we fix it. I don't think that's transhumanism to fix it in the human body. And if I went deaf because the cochlear whatever that's going on in the ear was sending the wrong or not sending the correct signals to the brain, and I wasn't able to hear, and somebody came along and said, "Hey, we can jump that little short that's taken care of there. We can fix this." Yeah, okay, go ahead and fix it. I'd rather have that than pharmaceuticals. I'm more worried about pharmaceuticals than I am the Neuralink kind of stuff, which is completely dealing with the electrical system. Same with blindness, color blindness, paraplegic or quadriplegic kind of issues. It's the neurons, the transfer that comes in there. So I'm okay with that, but the challenge is all that can and will be misused. Basically, anything that can be misused will be misused. And they will do it, like the internet. Every one of you today is watching the program on the internet. I suspect, I don't know, 25 years ago, somebody would have, if I had the program 25 years ago, I was too dumb then, but if I had the program 25 years ago, someone would have said, could the beast be the internet? I think you just have the potential to use something wrong. So I think the beast, the Antichrist, is a human, maybe. The weirdest I would go is maybe he's Judas, resurrected. And he probably, whoever, if you can set that aside for another day. But here's I think the Antichrist is human, but he is going to use things like AI or whatever it is at the time, advancements in technology, whatever it is at the time. He's going to use it. I would suspect he's going to use it for surveillance. And this is the biggest problem, I think, with the electronic world that we live in today is the surveillance issue. The phone is listening to you even right now. Your phone is listening to me right now. And it's watching. And even if you get rid of your phone, everything you do on the internet, somebody is watching it or has the capability to watch it. The truth is, for most of us, our lives are so boring that there's not much interest there in watching it. But they're reading all your emails. Everything. It's all capable there. So that's the big problem. Now, the Antichrist is just going to come along and use it. And that will be a challenge. But this is, in one sense, it's not anything new. What was was it Frank Church, the senator, a long time ago up in, was he Washington State? He had a little congressional committee. Senator from Idaho, not Washington. Chaired the Senate Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities in the mid-1970s. It was called the Church Committee. Let me give you a little example of AI. I just put this in Brave, and now all of the search engines are beginning to get where they put AI first, and then down here's all the old-fashioned stuff. So now what I put, Frank Church, Senator, investigation on surveillance. Okay, so that's why it says Frank Church, Senator, and it brings up this stuff. Okay, this is what I had in mind, but I couldn't remember that it was called the Senate Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities. That was the name of it. CSGOR. I was trying to see if that spelled something. The Church Committee. Established in response to revelations of widespread domestic surveillance and intelligence abuses by the Central Intelligence Agency, the FBI, the National Security Agency. Okay, he exposed the extent, and this was in 1975, and the extent of CIA, FBI, NSA surveillance on American citizens without any kind of search warrant was shocking. Go back and study the Church Committee and their report. It was absolutely shocking in 1975. And then later we elected the head of the CIA to be president. We conservatives. So my point is, there's always someone who is going to take it and misuse it. I think for the beast, that he's going to be very skilled at taking it and misusing it and using that for his own benefit and those who are left behind for their detriment. And the challenge is, and this is a huge challenge if somebody ever gets it figured out, the challenge is you're between a rock and a hard place. You can live life today totally disconnected from all that. But it is very, very difficult. Everyone listening here today, it would be a totally different kind of life to do it. Totally. I suspect 99% of you would have to move, first of all. Because if you're in any kind of neighborhood, I bet everything from your electric meter to your washer and dryer and refrigerator to your whatever you use to watch television, if you watch television, to your whatever you use for communication, your phone. It is all, every bit of it, subject to immediate surveillance and use against you. And So to get away from that, you can't just say, okay, I'm not going to have the internet anymore. First of all, that in and of itself is very difficult. You also have to say, I'm not going to have electricity anymore. And you'll have to say, I'm not going to use any of these modern utilities or appliances anymore, and et cetera, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to have to move out. So you could, now people do come to Taos actually for that purpose. They live completely off the grid, and they're not hooked up to the electrical system. They're not hooked up to the water system. They're not hooked up to if they get television, they use an antenna, and it's digital in that sense. And so you can do it. You certainly can live off the grid. That is not impossible. But again, 99% of you can't do it where you are at. You can't live off the grid in a suburban neighborhood. You'd have to get out somewhere to do it. And then even at that, just the logistics of how are you going to get money and use money, unbelievably challenging in today's world. So here we're between this rock and a hard place. Do I totally isolate myself from society? You can do it, and maybe it's the wisest thing to do. But very few people are equipped to do that, even emotionally equipped to do that, because again, you're so separated. I tell you, the people who do that around me, and I suspect Taos is one of the bigger areas of people living off the grid. There's a large population of people that live off the grid. But can I say, with all due respect, by society's standards, they're weird. And most of us are not ready to be weird. Truth be told, we like all these conveniences. So what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it? I think we have to recognize that with just about everything, there comes good, there comes bad. I saw some little headline, I didn't read it, about somebody in, was it England or somebody, France maybe, I don't know, killed with a sword, somewhere where they've got gun laws. Again, if it's not a sword, if it's not a gun, it's a knife, it's a sword, it's a, whatever it is, somebody is going to use it wrong. I think the beast of the Antichrist is going to be especially skilled at using it wrong. And those are the people we ought to look out for anyway. Even though you and I aren't going to be around for the beast because of the rapture, we ought to look around and say, who would be especially useful at using it wrong? I want to be suspicious of that. Interesting question. Thanks, William. I appreciate it. A worldview question that ties in with Scripture. Let's go to Edith in Missouri. I feel I should know the answer. Well, I've got my ruler here. If you don't know the answer, you should know. Shame, shame. I feel I should know the answer to this. But was Paul's message to the Jews different from Peter's message to them? If so, how? Thanks, Randy, and thanks, Edith. I think I'm going to say mostly no, it was not. I would use the Acts 26 passage where Paul is speaking to King Agrippa and says to him, I taught no other things than what Moses and the prophets taught. That's what I taught them. I think that Paul's message was a kingdom message to the Jewish people. I think even throughout the book of Acts, even after he had the mystery, he would first go to a synagogue and he would teach them about the Christ. I think we see this in, is it Acts chapter 18 where he goes to Thessalonica? Let's see, I may be off. Well, this one happens to work. Yeah. Acts chapter 18, verse 5. When Silas and Timotheus were come from Macedonia, Paul was pressed in the Spirit and testified to the Jews that Jesus was the Christ. What was Christ? Excuse me. His message to Jewish people was that Jesus was Messiah. Now, how much, here's where the difference may have been. He may have been focused on convincing them Jesus is Messiah, Jesus is Christ, and then for the implications of that, go see Peter, go see the other apostles, go see the churches of Judea. They all know what to tell you. They're all preaching this stuff. This is not new. This is not a mystery. This is, you don't need me to do that. So I just need to convince you that Jesus is the Christ, and then you go from there. So that may have been his difference, but that's only a difference in what chapter of the book you're on, not the content of the book itself. But I suspect you could find here where Peter also was teaching Jesus was Christ. But here's maybe the little bit of difference from a different chapter of the same book. That Peter, being the leader of the sect of the Nazarenes, the way, the Jewish believers, the little flock, being the leader of the little flock, Peter was focused on the advanced class, as I sometimes say. Paul, when he went out to Macedonia, that's not the advanced class. There's a synagogue there. They haven't heard. Remember when he goes to Ephesus and there's those people that are Jews in the synagogue. They've been baptized under John, but they don't even know that there is a Holy Ghost. They don't know the day of Pentecost has come. They don't know anything about it. He's on that edge where the news of what has happened of late has not come about. He's filling them in. It's almost the difference between, I don't know, to use kind of evangelical terms, the evangelist and the pastor. The evangelist, he's going to come in and he's going to preach basic come to Jesus kind of sermons, and the pastor is going to take on and he is going to teach the Bible. So if there's a difference between Paul and Peter as it relates to the Jews, I would say that's it. Now that would be kind of a safe approach. By the way, question this because I've never taken this theory to see if I can prove this out. But that would be a safe approach for Paul, because when Paul, speaking over here to the kingdom group, or speaking over here to the body of Christ group, and you got a little transition here, to go somewhere, you can always start with Jesus is the Christ. That becomes kind of foundational right here. Now, we want to go on. Why don't you people go over here to the Judea churches? Why don't you people come over here with me? Between the differences of the two. But you got a mixed audience, or you got a Jewish audience in a mixed population base like Macedonia. That would be a good, safe place to start. You're not digging into somebody else's business or territory. This is common information that works for both, that Jesus is the Christ. But therein, I think, would lie the difference. So I suspect if we could find Paul continuing on, that we would find his message is the same as Peter's. Now, on an individual, that really would be on a national basis. Even a synagogue basis would be a national basis. So when he's in the synagogue, that's where he's going to be. Get him out of the synagogue, I think he's going to be a different message, and that's going to be the individual message. We've been kicked out of the synagogue. We've been kicked out of the nation. We're going to come over here and teach this individual stuff. I think would be a good way to put it. Okay, here we have an anonymous question, a new listener. I have a problem. I attend a conservative, charismatic church for the last 12 years that plays worship songs from Bethel, Hillsong, Elevation, etc. They only choose the biblically sound ones. Let's stop right there. Well, I'm going to make an assumption because I have to admit I am not an expert on Bethel, Hillsong, Elevation. I know all of those. And I know that they write praise music. And I know that, as this listener seems to be learning, that there's a lot of mysticism, which is charismatic, mysticism and, I don't know, self-help and me kind of stuff that gets in a lot of that worship music. But I'm going to go ahead and assume with this that there probably are some biblically sound things that these places put out. Now, of course, and I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't go here, then you've got to say, do I want to give my money, as a church mostly, give my money to pay for the royalties to be able to use that because of all the other garbage that's associated with? But let's make the assumption, and again, we'd have to go through detail to question this assumption, but let's go with it, that they have some biblically sound courses. They probably do. I mean, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So they write some that's maybe just scripture, and it's put to a song, something like this. Okay, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I discovered these megachurches that produce these songs are heretical. I suspected we would go here. Yeah, you do. You do run into this issue. And before I go on with the question, I want to speak theoretically to this. So you do say, okay, Bethel, Hillsong, Elevation, lots of, if you don't want to use the word heresy, which might be a good word, but I don't listen to them enough to know exactly what they're teaching. But if you don't want to use the word heresy, I think you'd certainly use the word garbage. Lots of garbage there. And in my book, Evangelical Garbage, I've got, somewhere, yeah, towards the end, chapter 15, let me check chapter 14. Yeah, chapter 14. Well, it's all part 4 of the book, What Can Be Done. Chapter 14, change your values, quit buying their products. Chapter 15, change your giving, quit paying their salary. Chapter 16, change your church, it's time to walk away. So I write about some of these things in there. So here's one who says, okay, they're supporting this stuff that is garbage. My values are changing. So I'm going to change my money. Eventually, I'm going to probably change my location. That is a journey, I recognize. I don't, just because humans are human, and there's lots of things interwoven in here, and nothing is quite as easy as it seems. I don't expect a person necessarily, they get a new insight, a new level of knowledge, just to immediately cut and run. If we did that all the time, we would make too many bad choices. We have to kind of work through some things. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, biblically, we have to kind of work through some things. So you gotta let this simmer. Now, I want to before I go from here, mega churches that produce these are heretical. Let's assume it's true. It's probably a safe assumption, but anyway, let's assume it's true. You don't want to get to the point that, to use an old line, you only drink milk from a Christian cow. what I mean by that is we can get so black and white that I won't go down to that hamburger stand because that person is a charismatic. And I am not going to have a charismatic make my hamburger for me. I'm a little more gracious on that. I would probably say I'm not going to have that charismatic teaching Sunday school or interrupting a church service or leading worship, but they can make my hamburger. I'll be back to your question. Who's the guy? I don't know. He's been in the news recently, or in, I don't know if news is the right thing, in the social media feeds from Christian. Some guy who is either a movie star or a comedian or something like that, and he just became a Christian. And I don't know, got baptized or something like this is the word. Was it Russell Brand? Is that right? The problem is I didn't know the guy, so I was a little. Yeah. Okay, so this guy, Russell Brand. I don't know anything about it, and I don't even know what this stuff here is. I just don't know why any guy would want a man bun. Okay, Russell Brand, no one trusts government, no one trusts the media. Why are we surprised that more of us are turning to God? Okay, I haven't listened to any of this stuff, but I know that he has made some kind of turn towards God or Christianity. And mainly what I see is attacks by Christians on him turning towards Christianity. I understand, ladies and gentlemen, that he probably has adopted a very messed up view of Christianity. But guess what? That's why you and I are here. Why don't you go down to the local Baptist church? Because everybody down there has adopted a messed up view of Christianity. Why don't you go to any of the churches in your town? Because every single one of them. Now, when you get a guy like, say, Russell Brand, and he goes down to the Baptist church, the Calvary Chapel, the I don't know what it is, whatever community church, whatever, and he gets involved in that, excoriate him, is that the word? Cut him off at the knees. How dare he? But your neighbor goes down to that church. Your boss goes down to that church. Everybody, Christianity's so messed up that we can't, every time somebody comes to faith in Christ or somebody makes a turn, we gotta work with them where they're at. My guess is that Russell Brand is totally messed up in his theology, but it's because the church is totally messed up. So rather than, he's going to hell to Russell Brand, hell, which is what I see on the internet. Why don't we say, hey, here's a guy who's got an openness towards God, Jesus, the Bible. We need to find a way to encourage that and bless that. Now, again, I'm the guy that wrote the book Evangelical Garbage that says, get out of there. But there's a good way to deal with it and a bad way to deal with it, I think. And honestly, the good way to deal with it is probably we're going to have to be a little more slow. Now, if you go to Russell Brand's pastor, I don't even know if he has one, but if you go to Russell Brand pastor and Russell Brand's pastor is teaching stupid stuff, then that's where the responsibility lies. It's in the seminaries, it's in the pastor. That's where we ought to be attacking, because those are the guys that are causing this kind of Russell Brand stuff. Okay, Scott says, I would call Brand an extreme libertarian. Remember we talked yesterday, libertarians end up, that thing circles around and you end up on the liberal side. Shrewsbury over in England says he's a messed up guy, but he's intelligent and searching. Yeah, I think it's these intelligent guys that are going to question the assumptions, and they're going to meddle with some stuff. It's kind of like you and I think, as we study the Bible, we get into these things that you say, oh, wow, that's very weird. And some people just cut us off there because we have a brain. We check it out. So the challenge is, how do you take these and do it? Now, somehow we got away from the question here. But here's the okay, I go to a charismatic church, it does heretical music, and I recognize there's all this in it. Now what do we do? So let's go on back to the question. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I discovered these mega churches that produce these songs are heretical. I think that's probably right. More like New Age, occult, false Christian. There's tons of New Age. Mystical is typically what the word I would use. Mysticism in there. False Christianity, so meaningless. They don't believe in the biblical Jesus. Probably true. I know my church picks the biblical songs, but I also know that our church pays a royalty fee, and they do. You know, unless you sing out of the old hymnal, we don't pay a royalty fee because we use the hymnal. And the royalty fees we pay came from buying the hymnal. But if you just sing out of a printed book that somebody sold, you don't have to pay royalties. Okay. And if you sing songs that were written 100 years ago, certainly don't. So we're supporting false megachurches. And I agree with your analysis. I think you're right. And I'm sure we're going to get to eventually what do I do with it about this. But anyway, I am sure if I asked them to play a biblical song by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, they'd refuse. You're right. I don't know if the Mormon Tabernacle Choir writes music and sells it, but yeah, I don't think they would do it. You're exactly right. And very good point. Maybe my pastor doesn't realize how bad these churches are. This is where I'm a lot nicer to Russell Brand, even with his goofy haircut. I'm a lot nicer to him than to the pastor, because the pastor's the guy that is the shepherd of the flock. He ought to be watching out for this. He ought to know it. He ought to care about this. And when all you care about, and Pastor Bays did a good job at expressing this in his little video on small churches. When all you care about is getting people in there as the pastor, that's a problem. And some of these pastors say, hey, that music gets people in. And I think it will. But you got to deal with that right. Maybe my pastor doesn't realize how bad these churches are. My husband doesn't agree with me, which I would say is a very common problem when one person has, I'll make it general. First of all, when one person has biblical growth that the other person doesn't have in the marriage, that becomes a problem, whether it's the husband or the wife. And dealing with that slowly, graciously, understanding that people come along at a different time, understanding the dynamics of the relationship can be very difficult. He doesn't even want me to even lovingly speak to our pastor or write an anonymous letter. The Bible says not to partake in evil works of darkness, but to expose them. I feel stuck between a rock and a hard place, as I don't want to go against my husband's wishes. Here we the theme of today's program is between a rock and a hard place, because the two questions that I've gone tremendously long on do have to They both have to do with the same thing, whether it's technology on one end or it's theology on the other. We have such a messed up world. How in the world do you do this? Okay. I don't want to go against my husband's wishes, but I can't even participate in worship at my church the last few weeks. I just put in my earbuds and listen to my own worship. I'm praying, but feeling so alone in this. Am I off base in my convictions on this? Thanks in advance for your feedback and reading my long question. Have a blessed day. Thank you. I appreciate that. Putting in your earbuds. You know, I think I mentioned this earlier. I never had these until I think it was earlier this spring. I actually owned a pair and I never used them. They're these little things you put in your ear, and I use them to listen to audiobooks. And I never used them before because I just play the audiobook in the car or whatever. But I have realized if I had to go to a bad church, I could put in something good and listen and pretend. Because if I had to sit there and listen to the garbage, I would have a stroke. I need to put something in to block it out. But every now and then you're stuck. I would say to this lady, for a while you're stuck. But take slow steps getting away. This is my own personal advice. Somebody else might give different advice. Take slow steps getting away. You don't want to, cause so much rift in your marriage that it's uncomfortable. You've got friends at the church. You can't just rip the Band-Aid off. You'll cause more harm than you had. So, find ways to engage in conversation. After church, do that which is the easiest with those who don't agree with you, whether it's your husband or people in your fellowship in that church. Take the easy stuff, not the second, third, fourth tier underneath. So I wouldn't really start with, yeah, this was fine, but we're paying royalties over there. I think that's a great point, but I would start looking for the stuff to say, wait, did we just sing blah, blah, blah? Do you think that's right? Or if you want to be more upfront, that doesn't seem to be right, what he said in the sermon or what we said. Try to get that surface level stuff, because your husband, your coworkers, your friends, your whatever at the church, your family at the church, they are not seeing the levels 2 or 3 down. They're only going to see it on the surface. So start there. Plant those seeds, work it through, make it a slow go. Even if your husband doesn't immediately come along and you get a lot farther, if you're able to say, I get so frustrated by this. And you just leave it at that. I get so frustrated by this. Eventually, I suspect your husband is going to say, well, maybe we should try something else. This is not working for you. Let's try something else. Maybe. Now, will that take 3 weeks, 3 years? I don't know. It's a slow journey. Now, then on the flip side, that was kind of critiquing your church with your husband and people that you go to church with in a very, very gentle way. As you learn some things in the scriptures, find a nice way to express that. You're at the dinner table, you say, I just realized, I don't know why I haven't seen this before, but I just realized that Paul is so very different than the other apostles. That's just, I don't know, it's, whatever. It's just kind of, I think it's sort of neat. I wonder why I never taught that before. And if he or family members jump on it, go for it, but really, really gentle. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you end up on an island by yourself, which is not a good place to be. I'm reading this. Reading, is that the best word? Reading this book, audio book. I can't even remember the name of it. Island of the Lost. It's about this shipwreck. It's a true story. Back in the 1800s down in Auckland or something down there. I think they're going to survive, but I haven't come to the end. But I did read the back cover. That's a tough, tough, tough place to be. So if you can avoid being on the island of the lost, do that. Baby steps is what I'm saying. I hope that helps. And let me say there again, it is going to be tough to get there. And other people might have advice. And your personality and whatnot, I mean, there's a lot of things in the mix there. I noticed a few people gave Ryan some advice. Ryan, new to our channel here, he says, thank you very much, glad to have you. And I noticed a couple of people said, proceed your question with the word question. And that if we have this software that if it says question, it sends it over to our side. It used to work just with a question mark, but what I realized is I got way too much with that. How are you? You know, are you having lunch today? You got all that stuff. So we narrowed it down to the word question. But because some of the other people gave Ryan some advice, I knew there was a question. So I have gone here to look, and I see Ryan's question. And very happy to have you, Ryan, wherever you're from, new to your channel. What are your thoughts on the Reformed Calvinistic movement? I am going to jump that question here so we can get it in today, since Ryan is new with us, and then jump back to some of these others. First of all, I have at our website, however it's old, so I'm going to have to show you how to get there. If you go to randywhiteministries.org and then click here in this pink box, click here to go to our old site, do that. Click there, and it'll take you to the old one. Now, once you're there, I just want you to do a Command F or a Control F for find and type the word reformed. Now, for me, it comes up 5 times. Here's Tulip System, an analysis of Reformed soteriology, but I want you to skip that one. Let's go down the Millennial Kingdom. We're going to skip that one. The Theocratic Kingdom. We're going to skip that one. Here it is. What is Reformed theology? Click on that one, and then, let me stop that right there. It looks like 7 sessions here on what is Reformed theology. Now, this is all on YouTube as well, so you could, you could on our YouTube channel, you could search what is Reformed theology. Now, that's if you want like 7 hours of me telling you what I think about Reformed theology. If you want the quick answer, here it is. Let's call Calvinism the soteriology of Reformed theology. So Calvinism is a subset of Reformed. If you are Calvinist, you are Reformed. If you are Reformed, you're probably Calvinist, but it's just the soteriology is how to get saved. How is a person saved? That's the Calvinist part of it. The Reformed theology is how do you read the Bible? It is what's the requirements for the Christian life? What should the church be like? What is our source of authority? Things like this. Hermeneutics, all those kind of things. So I think that they're both messed up. I think that they are both based upon a flawed premise. Now, one of the reasons that it is popular is because both Reformed theology and its Calvinistic subset are very logical. And for logical people like you and I'm certain that Ryan is logical because he came to our channel, but logical people like you and I like logic. We're impressed with logic. But a logical argument does not win the case. Think about, let's put ourselves in a criminal case here. And they say, that Ryan stole the candy bar. Ryan stole the candy bar. And the prosecutor comes along and says, Ryan lives in, I don't know where Ryan lives, so we'll put him in Kalamazoo. Ryan lives in Kalamazoo. The candy bar was stolen in Kalamazoo. Ryan lives on the north side. The candy bar was stolen on the north side. Ryan likes chocolate. The candy bar was chocolate. Ryan lives 2 blocks from that convenience store where the candy bar was stolen. We have evidence from our surveillance of Ryan, that shows that he goes to that convenience store. We believe that he goes normally at 7:30 in the morning. The candy bar was stolen at 7:30 in the morning. We found a candy bar wrapper in Ryan's car. The same kind of candy bar that was stolen. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan is our criminal. Do you know, a jury, hopefully not, but a jury might be persuaded. A good defense attorney would say, so, does this prove beyond any unreasonable doubt that Ryan stole the candy bar? No. Are there other people who go to that convenience store? Cross-examination. Do other people go to that convenience store? Do other people eat that kind of candy bar? Do other people like chocolate? Do other people have those kind of candy bar wrappers in their car? Were there other people in the store at 7:30? Or who tend to go in the store at 7:30? Yes. You have not proven a thing with your very logical argument. Now, to get back to the question, Reformed theology and the Calvinistic movement is built upon all of this logic, but it doesn't get any cross-examination. You give it some cross-examination, and all of a sudden you have to say, uh-oh, this doesn't work. On our website, that Tulip series thing that I mentioned, I'll start with Calvinistic soteriology, which starts with the T of total depravity. I reject total depravity. I think that's their assumption. That's why we say question the assumptions. Their assumption in total depravity is not, by the way, don't get it mixed up. They want you to think their assumption is, we're all sinners separated from God. That is not their assumption. That is not total depravity. Total depravity is that no person can accept the gospel unless they are one of the elect. It does not matter how clear, how pure, what the motives are, what the clarity of the words are in the sharing of the gospel, how proper the gospel is shared. If they are not one of the elect, one of the chosen one, they cannot receive the gospel. Period. That's total depravity. I reject that idea. I think that the gospel can be shared, and every man, woman, boy, or girl, they can hear it, they can receive it, or they can reject it. So I reject total depravity. Well, the only reason they got up is because once you buy into total depravity, you have to have unconditional election or nobody's going to be saved. And then you have to have limited atonement that only sheds blood for this group of people. Otherwise, God shed his blood for nothing. It's in their assumptions. And then you have to have irresistible grace because they're so totally depraved that they would never come to him. So the grace has got to come to them in a way that they can't get it, in a way that they will receive it and they can't get away from it. And then you have to have the perseverance of the saints, or the preservation of the saints, depending on how you, either way you go with it. Because if they're unconditionally elect, they got to be preserved. So it's this, we built this wonderful structure. The issue, though, is what kind of foundation is it on? And I think Reformed theology, which has a foundation of, and I speak to it more, what is session 1 of Reformed theology? What is Reformed theology? Is session 1? Session 1 and 2. But I'm sure in that, it's been a long time, I'm sure in that I say that Reformed theology takes this, what I think is a flawed set of assumptions on how to interpret your Bible. And from there on, they go and they get it wrong. So there's my quick, again, if you want the 7 version issue, you can get it there. But Ryan, we're glad to have you here. Ryan from Kalamazoo, wherever you're from, Ryan. Stick around to ask any questions you want, and we'll be happy to have you. Get to know you, as we've got one big happy family here. Okay, I didn't get to Pastor Timothy. I didn't get to the anonymous question about how much studying do we have to do. So let's pick up tomorrow with how much study does it take to be a workman approved of God, and then let's get into Pastor Timothy, and then I think I'll check that out. We might be ready to go then to fix all that up. Thank you each one for being here tonight. If you happen to watch us live, 10 minutes after 6 Mountain Time. Just trying to decide if that's 7 or 8 in Kalamazoo. But anyway, 10 minutes after 6 Mountain Time, I'll be doing the Gospel of Mark. I think we're in the 10th chapter. Look forward to sharing that with you. Of course, you can catch it on the archives as well and get some verse-by-verse Bible study. So good to have each one of you, and appreciate you being here. I wonder, let's just see here. I was looking to see if we had any birds on the bird cam here. Now I pushed the wrong button. Looks like just a windy day up there with no birds on the bird cam. So I'll just close out the normal way. Thanks for joining us here. I appreciate it. Come join us again and ask your questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at askthetheologian.com. We'll see you soon.